Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. It all started on a quiet Thursday afternoon, the kind where time seems to move slower than usual. I had just finished folding the last of the laundry, the scent of lavender still fresh on my hands, when I settled onto the couch with a cup of lukewarm coffee. It was supposed to be my moment of peace. A rerun of Murder, She Wrote was playing, my guilty pleasure. But then, with a flicker and a pop, the TV screen went black. At first, I assumed it was just a loose cable or a power surge. I fiddled with the remote, pressed every button I could think of, even tried unplugging and replugging everything, but nothing worked, just static and silence. Now, I've never been what you'd call tech savvy. I know how to log into Netflix, and I've mastered the art of online grocery shopping. But anything more complicated than that? Well, let's just say it's outside my comfort zone. That's when I thought of Henry. Henry, my next-door neighbor, had moved in about 2 years ago after his wife passed. A quiet man in his early 60s, polite and always with a gentle smile. He kept to himself mostly, but we'd exchanged enough polite conversations over the fence and occasional help with yard work that I felt comfortable asking him for a favor. I slipped on my cardigan, brushed a few stray hairs behind my ears, and walked over, cup still in hand, feeling a little silly for needing help with something so basic. His house looked just like mine, modest, well-kept, with a garden out front that bloomed with those tiny blue flowers I could never remember the name of. I knocked lightly on the door. After a moment, I heard the sound of footsteps, slow and steady, and then the door creaked open. "Hi, Henry," I said, smiling. "Sorry to bother you, but I think I've done something to my TV, and, well, I was wondering if you might take a look." He blinked a few times, caught off guard. Then his face softened. "Sure," he replied. "Let me grab my shoes." Back at my house, he stood in the living room looking over the tangled mess of cables behind the TV, while I stood nearby, trying not to hover. "You know," he said with a chuckle, "you've got half of Best Buy plugged in back here." I laughed, maybe a little louder than necessary. "That sounds about right. My son set it up before he moved, and I've been too scared to touch it." He crouched down, fiddled with a few things, and within minutes, the screen blinked back to life. The familiar music from my show filled the room, and I let out a relieved sigh. "There we go," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Just a loose HDMI connection." What?" He smiled. "Never mind." I offered him coffee as a thank you, and to my surprise, he accepted. We sat in the sunroom, the one I always kept neat but rarely used. The late afternoon light streamed in through the glass panels, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. "Never come in here," I confessed, handing him a mug. "Feels like a room meant for someone else's life." He sipped slowly, looking out at the backyard. "It's nice, peaceful." We talked for a while about nothing and everything. I learned he used to teach high school shop class. He told me how quiet the house had been since his wife passed. He shared that he'd started wood carving to fill the time. I listened more than I spoke, but there was comfort in that too. As the shadows grew longer, something shifted between us, a kind of stillness, not awkward, but tender, the kind of silence you don't need to fill. He looked at me then, not in an overt, obvious way, but with a kind of gentle focus that made me feel seen. It had been a long time since someone looked at me like that, really looked. Not as a mother or a neighbor or a widow, just me. I cleared my throat and stood, breaking the moment. "Well, I guess I should let you get back to your evening. Thank you again, Henry. I'd have gone mad without my shows." He stood too, lingering a beat before nodding. "Anytime," he said. "You know where I am." As I closed the door behind him, I leaned against it for a moment, heart quietly racing. It was just a neighbor helping with the TV, right? And yet, something about it didn't feel so simple. The next few days passed uneventfully, though I couldn't quite shake the odd flutter that had taken up residence in my chest. Every time I walked past the sunroom or flipped through TV channels, I found myself thinking of Henry. Not in a giddy schoolgirl sort of way, but more like a familiar melody I couldn't quite place. Soft, lingering. I hadn't expected him to come by again. It was a one-time favor, a neighborly gesture. But on Sunday morning, as I stepped out to tend to my roses, there he was kneeling by his garden with a trowel in hand, wearing a baseball cap a little too big for his head and humming something under his breath. I hesitated. He looked peaceful, like someone wrapped in his own quiet world. But then he looked up and caught my eye. "Morning," he said, smiling. Morning, I echoed, brushing my palms on my jeans. The tulips are coming in nicely. He glanced over at them. Yours always come in first? Must be your magic touch? I laughed, though I felt my cheeks warm a little. Or beginner's luck. I still Google how to prune every spring. He stood up and dusted off his hands. Listen, I was wondering, I made too much stew last night. Would you be interested in helping me get rid of the leftovers? I'd hate to waste it. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to. Truthfully, I hadn't had company at my kitchen table in a long time, but because something about his offer felt more meaningful than it should have. Still, I nodded. That sounds lovely.